Coming up, we'll recap the growth of coronavirus and show you Denton's latest numbers.
We'll also take a look at how the pandemic has affected the 2020 census.
Is covering your face actually useful? We'll show you the science behind wearing and making masks during the pandemic. There are 799 cases of coronavirus in Denton County as of yesterday, May 2nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Caroline Cluis.
And I'm Abram Gallegos. The city of Denton leads the county in cases at 150, and the Denton State Supported Living Center has reported over 80 cases. That number outpaces major cities in the county like Frisco and Louisville.
Since our last broadcast a month ago, cases of COVID-19 in America have risen from 250,000 to over 1 million. Let's take a quick look at the past few months. On February 2nd, the first death from coronavirus outside China was reported in Thailand. The global total at this time was a little over 14,000. This was almost a month after the World Health Organization declared COVID a global public health emergency. Nearly 2 months later, the U.S. reported more cases than any other country, over 82,000. Meanwhile, the global total rose to 500,000. A little over a week later, that total did reach 1 million. U.S. cases at this point exceeded 300,000. 2 weeks later, the global count had doubled. U.S. counted 700,000 cases. As of yesterday, there are 3.3 million cases across the world, with 230,000 deaths and over 1 million recoveries reported.
On April 17th, President Donald Trump announced his three-part plan to reopen businesses and restore the economy. The announcement comes just after the U.S. reached its peak week of coronavirus cases. However, not everyone is in agreement with the president's decision. The three-part plan starts by easing restrictions on areas with low case numbers while keeping harder restrictions on areas that have been hit harder. In Texas, around 19,000 cases of COVID-19 have been reported by the Texas Health and Human Services and 477 deaths. Even though it has been said that America has passed its peak for coronavirus cases, many Americans can't help but fear that by loosening regulations and reopening businesses, it can push progress back and put more people in danger.
I believe it will do more harm than good to reopen Texas right now. I do know that we are in a financial crisis and everything, but citizens' lives are more important than money. We don't have the resources, the testing, a cure to safely reopen without citizens' lives to be compromised. If they take a drastic measure like 2 weeks quarantine, like no grocery store, like in-house, nothing. I feel like we can start reopening, but until something happens, like a miracle happens, a cure or something, like we shouldn't even think about reopening anything.
On Friday, Governor Greg Abbott continued his plan to reopen Texas by lifting restrictions for restaurants, movie theaters, and retail stores. On April 18th, Abbott reopened state parks and began allowing more surgeries to take place. Not all businesses are allowed to open up yet, including bars, gyms, and hair salons. One salon owner in Richardson, Texas, has ignored the restrictions completely. Shelley Luther says she couldn't afford to keep her business closed.
It's not about the haircut at all. It's about these people being able to feed their families and making grown person decisions to come in if they want to, and other grown adults to make the decision to come in if they want to.
Jamal Al-Nasser runs All Ramen Food Store. His business is legally essential, but he says it's still been challenging to stay open. Many of his customers don't want to leave the house. But he says he can't afford to close his store and will have to remain open despite the outbreak.
Yeah, but now because the people, nobody work. If I have customer before 100% every day, 100%, now maybe between 10 to 15% come. So lost business a lot. But you cannot go to close because it's not easy. When you make it, it's hard. When you close, you lost a lot. You can't.
Other local businesses have been shut down or forced to cut down on hours to provide safety for both the customers and employees. With social distancing being one of a few ways to combat the virus, many business owners are finding it challenging to run their establishments. Though 22 million Americans have filed for unemployment, many are still wondering how they can pay their bills without having a job.
Even with COVID-19 and the social distancing orders, there are still a large amount of people who have essential jobs and are still working. Work has been quite different, to say the least. But just how different has it been for those still going into work? Jocelyn Avina works for the City of Farmers Branch and tells us normally she would be working at the Recreation Center, but now she is asked to help out in other departments in the city. She helps at the food pantry to give out food, the Parks Department, and also city code enforcement.
And then we also code enforce the community, making sure that they are social distancing themselves and following the Dallas County guidelines. So we pretty much just go out and drive around, make sure that people are in the trails 6 feet, in the park 6 feet.
City officials say certain facilities will open back up tomorrow, May 4th, and will follow Governor Abbott's guidelines. Details can be found at the city website.
Police officers are also essential workers. NTTV's Brooke Lamp spoke to Arlington PD about how the virus has affected their usual routine.
COVID-19 has forced Arlington Police Department to change what would typically be their usual routine. Hear more about it from Arlington Police themselves.
My name is Heath Cook. I'm a police officer for the city of Arlington, and I've been a police officer for almost 23 years. Mostly they've been told that they were going to try and do a lot of calls for service via telephone or video or something like that. They can take the report over the phone, as opposed to actually get an officer on scene. Now, if an officer is needed on scene, then we're going to go no matter what. But they're trying to do their social distancing. They're trying to make a lot of contacts outside rather than going inside someone's home. They've got some PPE, some personal protective equipment that they've been issued, like masks and some Tyvek suits if they needed it and that kind of stuff.
The Arlington Police Department has a special message for its community.
I want to let anybody out there who, may be worried that your local police department, your local fire department is there for you. Don't be afraid to call 911 if you think that you need us. We are taking precautions to not spread the virus, and obviously we don't want to get the virus ourselves. So we are taking extra precautions. We're finding creative ways to help you guys out so that we can still social distance. But if you need us, we're going to be there for you. We'll all get through this together.
Many aspects of our lives have changed to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Our reporter, Cami Farrell, explains how these changes could impact the upcoming elections.
Rallies have been canceled, primaries postponed, and debates held 6 feet apart. This year's election cycle has changed drastically in response to the coronavirus. Texas's primary season has come and gone, but many across the nation still have not voted. 15 states so far have rescheduled their primaries. Because of this, the Democratic National Committee has moved their convention to August. While Joe Biden is the presumptive winner with over 1,200 delegates, Sanders is in second with just over 900. Donald Trump is up for re-election. In the past, his rallies have been crucial to his campaign efforts, but the coronavirus has prevented gatherings of 10 or more. UNT Chair of the Political Science Department, Matthew Eshba-Soha, explains why supporters may still be energized without these rallies.
President Trump, if we're thinking, electorally, politically right now, he certainly has the advantage because he's out there every day providing updates of the coronavirus task force.
Trump may be making multiple public appearances each day. Political ads for both parties have begun to air far less frequently.
In the meantime, it's important for both campaigns to be reaching out to supporters in different ways. So this can be through Facebook, it can be through mailings.
Wisconsin is still set to have their primaries this Tuesday. For their own safety, some voters have decided to vote absentee in this year's primary election. While conditions and protocols about the coronavirus are continuously changing, this year's general election are still set to take place come November.
COVID-19 has affected the timeline for many organizations, including the 2020 census. Current operations at the U.S. Census Bureau have been suspended until June 1st. Residents now have until October 31st to answer the census. In Denton County, 58% of households have responded, making it the second highest response rate in the state. Currently, 79.5% of households in the U.S. have answered the census. The majority of those responses have been online, which is the first time residents could respond that way. By the middle of summer, door-to-door census workers will resume operations, and when asked about their safety, Assistant Regional Manager Jerome Garza shared similar concerns.
What is paramount to the U.S. Census Bureau is that the health and safety of not only the American public, but our employees also.
Garza also said that PPE will be provided to each worker. More information can be found at 2020census.gov. UNT will implement new pass or fail grading policy for the spring 2020 semester. With all of the challenging transitions due to COVID-19, the university says it understands how difficult it is for students to finish out their courses during this pandemic. This new policy will allow undergraduate students to choose whether their grades will be posted using the regular A through F grading scale or for a pass or no pass indication on their academic record. A pass grade will be accepted within degree requirements, but a no pass will not and will be treated similarly to a D or F depending on the degree requirements. Students will have until May 14th at 5 p.m. after grades are posted to decide whether they'd like to use the pass or no pass option. This decision comes after over 4,000 people signed a petition to change the university's grading policy due to COVID-19. For more information on the new pass or fail grading policy, you can visit UNT Registrar's office online at registrar.unt.edu/grades.
If you're wondering where your stimulus check is, you're not alone. NTTV's Anthony Gott tells us who won't be getting one.
Congress and the Senate just recently passed the $2 trillion stimulus package. When this news first broke, many Americans were relieved, but it was soon clear that the college students that are claimed as dependents won't be a part of this relief.
It is a big portion of the people who are going to be impacted by this. The people that are working in the restaurants and things, especially in college towns, they're mostly the students, and they're not going to be able to have the money. They're not going to be able to use that money to pay their rent. So it's a big hole in terms of the legislation.
Many students, myself included, were looking forward to the stimulus check, but for those who don't qualify, it appears they're still empty-handed.
It definitely would have been helpful to not have to rely on my parents for that, but thankfully they have told me that they're willing to help out, but I do know a lot of people who are still claimed as dependents on their parents, and their parents can't afford to help them out.
It's important for all college students to double-check their filing status and see if they qualify. If you're struggling financially and need help, contact Student Financial Services online for assistance. With NTTV, I'm Anthony Gott.
All 5 high schools in Denton ISD will retain their original graduation dates after partnering with Texas Motor Speedway. The new venue will allow an in-person ceremony that follows CDC guidelines on social distancing. Texas Motor Speedway has the capability to allow families to attend the ceremonies without leaving their vehicles. Graduates will receive diplomas hands-free and will be required to wear masks. Campus leaders will be providing more information on arrival times and parking in the coming days. NTTV's Courtney Glider talked with members of the class of 2020 about how they are coping with the big changes to their senior year.
Lasting memories with your graduating class, college field trips, and prom are some of the few things seniors look forward to during their final semester. But what do you do when you don't get a chance to create your final memories with the people you spent the past 4 years getting to know? 18-year-old Jakari Jordan is used to being on a stage like this, but with schools closing, he's not sure if he'll be walking across the stage or the next time he'll step foot on a court. Jordan is a shooting guard for Cedar Hill High School and was in the middle of recruitment for a full-ride scholarship.
Everything came to a halt, like they had to stop recruiting and everything because of the virus.
Jordan says he paid all of his senior fees and started making plans for the upcoming prom. But the uncertainty of it all just has him ready to get his diploma.
I would actually like to walk across the stage, shake a hand, and get my diploma handed to me.
Jordan Anderson took classes at the local community college to get her associate's degree along with her high school diploma. And now she's afraid she won't be able to traditionally celebrate both accomplishments. Although the school hasn't officially communicated how the graduation ceremony will take place, they are considering an alternate date, which may not allow Anderson's military brothers to attend.
I'm pretty sure the time that they already had taken off, they're not going to be able to come to another one.
Anderson plans to attend Dillard University in Louisiana, and she hopes things slows down before her freshman year in college.
On top of high school classes, I had to do college classes, and then I don't even get the reward for it.
Anderson says she feels like she's missing out on memories she'll never get a chance to remake.
I mean, people are dying, so it's like, I can't really feel too bad about it.
If you're worried about catching the virus, you can of course wash your hands, stay home whenever possible, or you can wear a mask. But there's a lot of misinformation out there about masks, so I looked into the CDC guidelines for masks. One way you can stay safe as businesses open back up is by using a face mask. The CDC recommends that masks are breathable, fit snugly, and have multiple layers of fabric to serve as a makeshift filter. To keep them clean and sanitary, the CDC says masks should be laundered and machine dried. Autumn Strange began sewing masks after the CDC recommended them for more than just hospital workers.
So when I first started, I just was using materials that I had. I managed to just use like old sheets and for the insides of the mask, and then fabrics that I had for the outside. I actually had a bunch of elastic. I thought I had a bunch, and then I ran out pretty quickly.
Even though orders kept coming in, stores weren't restocking on the items she needed to finish her masks. There wasn't any elastic left on the shelves, and ordering online would take several weeks to come in. So she started improvising.
When I ran out of elastic, I was offering to use ribbon, which was actually really easy to find in the stores still. So I was just using different colored thin ribbon that you could tie behind your ears so it was still adjustable.
To see what mask the CDC recommends for you, visit cdc.com/coronavirus. While Governor Abbott's orders encourage the use of masks, the city of Denton cannot penalize those who don't wear them.
The FBI believes hate crimes against Asian Americans will grow, according to intelligence reports. COVID-19 originated in Wuhan, China, and has caused many Americans to be in a panic. This has caused tensions to be high and Americans to lash out on Asian Americans as the virus continues to spread. As COVID-19 cases in America grow, many Asian Americans are fleeing for their lives. In Texas, a man allegedly tried to kill an Asian American family of 3 at a Sam's Club because he believed they were spreading COVID-19. Alexis Runyon says she is saddened to see the amount of ignorance many Americans have had towards the Asian American community.
It made me feel really kind of sad, and it just kind of made me feel like I would just, like prejudice kind of makes you feel kind of bad about who you are as a person. And you kind of feel like in the place of being Asian American, you're like, it's kind of hard to explain because it's never really happened to this degree ever. In my, as an Asian American, it's never really gotten to the point where I feel kind of like there's a slight fear that I have when I go outside.
Since the outbreak, many Asian restaurants and businesses have been affected due to Americans' fear of catching the virus. The latest data from the CDC shows a disproportionate amount of hospitalizations in Black Americans at 31%. NTTV's Mary Wicks takes a deeper look into why this is the case.
Minorities are being hit hard with death tolls rising from COVID-19. African American communities are rising up and wanting to know why. Experts say that better research and data is essential to getting the answers that are needed. Dr. Ila Biche is an ear, nose, and throat surgeon in Rockwall, Texas. His practice temporarily closed and are seeing patients remotely via Zoom and by phone to keep patients safe. Dr. Ila Biche discussed the underlying health issues in African American communities.
They identified the actual comorbidities, and they found that half of the people that were admitted had high blood pressure. Half of the people were obese, by the guidelines. And about a third of the people had what they describe as chronic lung diseases like asthma.
Another frontline worker is nurse practitioner Dominica Lent. She explains what she saw that led to the increased rate of Blacks being affected by coronavirus.
Lack of education. When this virus first came out, there was a lot of media stuff saying that African Americans couldn't get it, which is false. Not having the support system and the education to teach people that, hey, you really need to stay inside, and this is why, and this is the severity and how serious it is.
Lynn says there are alternatives to you going outside, such as meal deliveries, calling your doctor's office for a consultation, getting medication sent to your home are things that people should be doing.
African Americans are dying because of all those things that I've listed. And I think we, as a society, need to take the comorbidities of the hypertension and the diabetes seriously. So these are things that I think that if we could sit down and actually have a conversation and really teach the African American community, I think we'll have better outcomes. Some people just lack the resources and the assistance that's needed for a situation that's like this.
Both healthcare professionals agree it's time to get back to the basics of medicine and treating this virus by stopping the spread, which means people must simply stay home.
Families all across North Texas are struggling to get food on the table during the coronavirus pandemic. NTTV's Olivia Rodriguez shows us how a local food bank is helping provide food to families in need.
A local organization based in Farmers Branch is helping feed those who are struggling to find food during the coronavirus pandemic.
As cars pull up, they let us know how many people they have in their family, and we'll give them boxes of food so they can have food for the week.
Hundreds of families line up outside bright and early to receive their groceries for the week. Normally, MetroCrest Services is used to seeing about 30 to 40 families a day, but since the pandemic has started, they have seen nearly double the amount.
Today is Thursday, and in the past 3 days, we've helped over 300 families. And every day it has grown. On Monday we did 90 families. We had 90 applications come in. Tuesday the number was 114, and yesterday, Wednesday, was 124. When they come in, we actually have two different stations, and in the first station we'll give them some perishables, which will include frozen meat, some produce, and walnuts, and things like that. And then when they move over, they will actually receive a care box that will have microwavable items, canned goods, and some stovetop items. And everything that we've received here has been donated from other food banks, and actually even from individuals. We have had one very, very great individual who has come by for the past 3 days with a trunk full of food that they have actually gotten from Costco. Appreciate you.
Volunteers are working all day long to make sure no family in North Texas goes hungry.
As of right now, we really are just accepting anybody that needs it.
I'm Olivia Rodriguez for NTTV News.
More information can be found at metrocrestservices.org.
Due to the quarantine shutdown, some families are starting their own vegetable gardens to alleviate some of that stress of going to the grocery store. NTTV's Charles Burkett took a look to see what these families are digging into.
While people are required to stay at home, many are focusing their efforts to gardening. As you travel through many neighborhoods, you will most likely see some decorative gardens that are incorporated in many front lawns.
I wasn't planning on doing a lot of gardening this summer because I've been pretty busy. But now that I'm home more, I'm definitely expanding and even doing more than I had originally planned.
She also has some advice on people that are looking into starting gardens. Consider what you're planting it in.
So I would say for somebody who's starting out, really embrace container gardening and small, doing some pots, all different sizes. I think starting in that way, you have a very contained, you get to control the soil, you get to control the watering, and you can move it around if you need to.
One farmer is organizing options for community fleet farming to help out and start something different.
So that's where the name comes from, is like you move as a fleet from one site to the next, doing maintenance and then harvesting the produce.
One plant people normally, dig up could be used for something like this.
Starting with dandelions, that the whole plant is edible or medicinal.
So if you're planning on trying home gardening, there are many options to consider and resources that you can access to help along the way. One free resource is Texas A&M's website.
I basically just Google my question and then add TAMU at the end of my statement.
When the stay-at-home quarantine is lifted, we'll see a difference in how people are eating. I'm Charles Burkett, NTTV News.
The quarantine has many of those seed catalog sites backed up on orders due to high demand. The Texas Rangers were preparing for opening day at Globe Life Stadium when the virus started. The virus caused them to postpone the season to a further date. The team's strength and conditioning coach, Jose Vasquez, has been working closely with the coaches and players on how to stay in shape during quarantine.
Trying to figure out what they have, what they're doing, sending them, make sure that they have a workout to follow. We have an app that has a program for everybody. Different positions have different needs, so they all have different things. But also, each guy has a different thing too. You know, some guys are older, some guys are younger, some guys have injuries. Some pitchers are starters, some pitchers are relievers. So that they have to throw more. Some guys have to throw more, some less. So for the most part, everybody's on something different. To come up with ideas on what they could be doing at home.
With social distancing and precautions being taken, the new stadium will begin to let Rangers train in groups of 2, with Vasquez to prepare them for what's next.
COVID-19 may be affecting citizens and businesses, but athletes are taking a big hit. Because of the coronavirus spread, spring sports programs are forced to halt their seasons. Conference USA announced that tennis, track and field, soccer, and other spring programs will not be competing until further notice. For many athletes, being in season and competing is the best way to mark their progress. Now, athletes like Lauren McCollum find new ways to do so.
They'll put the workout that we have and the workout that we would do if we weren't, in quarantine or social distancing. And then on the side, like, this is how you can modify it if you don't have these specific things, or if you don't have a weight room close, or if you don't have any weights at home or whatever, here's a way how to modify it. And they'll send us like YouTube videos and different professionals talking about what they're doing during this time and ways to modify the workout. So it's the same kind of outline, it's just modified.
With the season being canceled, spring athletes will have to wait an entire year to compete again. However, coaches are checking in with athletes and ensuring that they continue to train to bring UNT victory in the next season. Thankfully for senior athletes, the NCAA is planning to grant those who participate in spring sports another season of eligibility. The quarantine has some people finding new ways to lift some spirits through this time. Many have found that walking gives them an outlet to get out and feel normal. One Denton woman took her passion for photography to give some insight into how families were managing during this time.
I think I was more curious of the sociology of it all. What would people come up with? I could see the musical families. I saw the families that humor is their way of coping, and they were dressed up in luau outfits and drinking, a margarita, and families that were just more conservative.
There has been some backlash from some on Facebook about her taking the photographs is not keeping with the stay-at-home orders, but she plans to take more photographs in the coming weeks.
Now, you may be thinking there's not much to smile about, but one local North Texan resident is working to change that. Stephanie Sawyer found an idea to make families smile during the stay-at-home orders. She bought a unicorn costume from Amazon and decided to go outside daily to make children and families find joy again.
There's tension. Going to the grocery store, there's tension. Here in Texas, everyone makes small talk and stuff, and there's just less of that. So I think having something so out of the ordinary, it breaks that tension, and it kind of helps people forget for a minute that, it's a stressful time right now. And it allows them to laugh and just sort of, forget.
Sawyer says she and her husband like to visit local parks, trails, and essential businesses where people may be spending time. She enjoys getting outside and bringing laughs to herself and others. If you step outside for some fresh air, you might even spot the North Texas unicorn while you're out. Most of us have stayed in our homes to limit the spread of the virus, but NTTV's Cami Farrell found some neighbors who are safely spreading positivity.
Kimberly Williams, a Denton resident, lives in a neighborhood that had over 40 homes participate in a bear hunt. Williams and her son counted more than 70 stuffed animals on their walk.
It was great, especially for people with kids. Teenagers were doing it. We had some teenagers that we saw on scooters pointing out the bears.
The game was inspired by a children's book called We're Going on a Bear Hunt.
Many neighborhoods across North Texas are participating in bear hunts. To play, you need a bear, or any stuffed animal will do. The next step is to find somewhere to hide it in your front yard. But don't make it too hard to find.
kids should be able to see your animal when they walk by. The stuffed animals are most commonly found in windows. Some players even use this as an opportunity to share words of encouragement. Bear hunts like these can be a great way for your neighborhood to have fun and practice safe social distancing. Others are bringing color into these difficult times by chalking the walk. People like Ruth Holland in Louisville are using chalk to decorate their walkways and driveways to keep busy and spread some cheer. Holland even partnered with her next door neighbors to complete this large chalk art display.
I did the taping and everyone else started coloring in. Honestly, I felt like this was more for our adult project than the kids at the end of it all.
Others are sharing art through windows, on fences, or just about in any place they can find some room. Some children are dressing up to get the mail or just to stroll around the street. During quarantine, the only limit to fun is your imagination. Next time you're outside, keep a special eye out for bears or some sidewalk art. For NTTV News, I'm Cami Farrell.
That's all we have for you today. Thank you for joining us for the latest update on the coronavirus.